So Isela's getting on her little stools now,
What do you mean?
getting all sorts of stuff from the
Oh
cabinets
my
and yeah,
gosh.
she's a smart little girl.
And we are live. We are live. Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to the Maximo show here at VodPod Media. And there are cause for celebration for a lot of things. One is because I have my dear friend Ofelia Delgado in the house, who is a supporter, who is a reoccurring member. I think this is like your third or fourth time being on the show. You have the world record for being on the show as a guest. Thank you so much for being here. But we're also celebrating Hispanic, Latinx, Latina Heritage Month on all the ways you call it. We're calling it Heritage Month here because I believe that we are the forebearers of culture. We are the flag bearers in this country. We're out here representing day in and day out. Our people are doing phenomenal things. We are leaders in the community. And tonight we're highlighting our entrepreneur spirit with our business leaders, our community leaders like Ofelia Delgado, the Delgado Law Firm. Folks, if you get into a car accident, make sure you have her phone number on speed dial. You want to call her first. We're going to get into that and a whole lot more, but I got to ask you, Ofelia, first of all, you look great. You were mentioning your keys for getting healthy and getting strong, and I'm with you. We're big supporters of, health and wellness. So if you're out there doing what you need to do to get healthy for your families, for your communities, do the darn thing because we need it now. But I want to thank you for being here. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you for having me. I am doing great. I am enjoying my time on this earth, and today is. Thank you for having me. I can only say that I am happy to be back. And I am happy to provide as much information as you want me to provide and answer questions and, just let the audience get to know me a little bit more.
Absolutely. We're going to get to that and a lot more. And I've got to show you, we've got a little surprise for you here. We got a surprise and a thank you for coming on the show. This is a real life Ruellia plant, and we got it for you as a thank you. And, plants are very symbolic and, they're special for a lot of reasons. So take this home, get your hands in the soil, pot it. It'll be good for you and your family. And, we just wanted to give you something. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time and your talents with us. So
Gracias, Maximo. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you've come with the goods, First, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on, Hispanic Heritage Month. It's going to be here in a few days kicking off. We're celebrating tonight to kick off our weeks full of festivities here at VodPod. But give us your thoughts on, Heritage Month. I know you've been a community advocate for a long time. What do you say about this month?
Folks say it's a time to celebrate our culture. I think we should celebrate it year round. We shouldn't have a month just committed to Latinos, Chicanos, Mexican Americans, Hispanics, how you would like to call yourself. But I appreciate that people are acknowledging and having awareness of our culture. And it's more than just food and music and so forth. It's about our theory. It's about our thinking. It's about our history. Political systems that we have and have had in the past. It encompasses a lot more than just, music and food.
Absolutely. I got to ask you right off the bat too, you've always been someone, at least as far as I've known you and hearing a little bit about your background, reading your bio and everything, your resume, you've always been like a bold advocate. You've been one that's a straight shooter. You tell it like it is. You're not shy. Have you always been that way? Where does that come from?
Good question, Maximo.
We want to know.
Sometimes I believe, after I say something or do something, I'm like, well, maybe I should have not necessarily thought about it more, but maybe not be so blunt. My younger brothers tell me, can you not be so blunt with us sometimes?
Really?
But good question. I really do think it comes from the women in my family. If I think about the women in my family and being a young girl and a young child and just looking at them and listening to them, they were always just so bold and so really just in your face, not in a bad way, but if they had an opinion, they would let you know their opinion. If you disagree with their opinion, they were right to have a conversation with you.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it.
No, exactly. And I think some people, when they're super bold and they want to be in your face, they don't like to hear that other side, right? They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to have that conflict. I think in conflict for me or confrontation, that's when the most change has happened. And to be in uncomfortable spaces, to create change, to grow more, to make more allies, to realize that you might not always be right? And that's all right, because it's a learning, it's a time to reflect and a time to learn and a time to grow. But I've had that since I was young. I don't know if I was born with it, honestly, sometimes I think, because I grew up with so many cousins around me. And I have to say, the cousins that are about my age are pretty shy.
Yeah.
Are not really outspoken, and just to tell you, I think as a kid, I remember them telling us when we'd go visit in Mexico, we were going to grandma's house and she had little toys for us. And I remember I would always be the cashier. I would take ownership. I would be the cashier, and I wouldn't let anybody else do it. And so they would be like, next time, don't worry. You're going to be next time. Don't worry, Melissa. Don't worry, Janie. And every time. And years later, I asked them, why didn't you say something? Because they would just laugh. Ofelia always took ownership, and she would just do it and not let us do certain things. And they said, it's because your personality, you were just so bubbly and you made it fun. And so we're like, okay, we'll just go along with it.
Yeah. Well, these are certainly great traits to have as an attorney, because people want to hire someone who's going to be, aggressive. That's someone that's going to go after it, right? Someone that's going to defend them. And so we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I've got to ask you as well, you have brought a book with you. Yes. And the book was published by Aslan Libre Press, which is right here in San Antonio. Do you want to share with us the book, maybe show the camera and tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So this is the book. The book is titled Writing 50 Years, Más o Menos Amongst the Gringos, by Dr. Roberto Sintley. Rodriguez, last name. And so the book is about his writings. He was a columnist for many years, a professor for many years before his death, an untimely death, in my opinion. And so it gives you a glimpse of all the history that Roberto had and when he started writing as a young man up until his passing. It's pretty daring. It's pretty insightful, and it's just beautiful. I mean, reading some of the passages I read thus far and knowing him personally, I met Roberto at a conference when I was 19 years old. And that man was so kind and open to my personality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people find me a little bit too much sometimes, right? And I'm fine with that. I am who I am. And he embraced that. And he would promote it. He would empower me. And he said, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And so the book for me, I actually got it signed when he came to San Antonio this last time. And it was inscribed for my daughter, Isel. And I'm doing that, right? I'm going to signings, and I'm having these Chicana and Chicano writers sign books for my daughter. As she gets older, she can read them, and they're going to be given to her. And so Roberto has been, for me, I have to say, his passing has been very hard. And I think it taught me a lot of appreciating the leaders that were in my life. By chance, I just would walk into rooms and conferences, rallies, meetings, and I have met some extraordinary people, Maximo, that have, had my back.
Well, rest in honor to those that have recently passed. Again, this month is takes a lot of different shapes. It's enriching, and it's, I guess, nourishing to know that you're, raising your daughter this way, right? To empower her even at a young age with these sorts of gestures. And how we raise our kids says a lot, about our future. To me, if we're going to, be talking about our culture and maybe putting a magnifying glass over it, because we do celebrate it pretty much every day, right? But if you put a magnifying glass over, under our culture for, this next 30 days, it's about bringing out the best. It's about talking about our futures. It's talking about our children. It's talking about, leaders and people that are empowering other people, because we're all in this together. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we appreciate you coming through tonight. The Ofelia Delgado law firm, tell us a little bit about the Delgado law firm, what makes it different than others, and just give us some insight on why you created this law firm.
Good question. Thank you. So I, like many attorneys, when we get out of law school, we practice with other law firms. And, I'll be honest, in the law firms I've been at, I wasn't very happy with the quality of work or quality of engagement, quality of the client-attorney relationship had, right? For the exception, I would say, of Raíces. And so I always would think, well, I don't like certain things. What am I going to do differently? I always knew that I wanted my own business. I grew up with a father that has his own business. My mother was always trying different projects to have her own business. And so I think I grew up with that, always knowing that I was going to have my own office. It just took time, like everything else. And so I decided around 2016, 2017 to go out on my own. I had an, we don't come from families that have money. And so I had, accumulated a good amount of money to be able to go out on my own without accumulating debt, because that's the last thing I would want, right? Of course, things change along the way, but that's what I did. And I decided that Delgado Law Firm was going to be different. I think I am different in the sense of my personal experience. I have an immigrant mother, a Tejano father, right? Even though he was born out in Saginaw, Michigan, because he comes from a farm worker family. They settled in San Antonio. And I grew up in Mexico in the summers. So I feel like I can relate to what people call paisas, right?
Yeah.
I connect very quickly, and I just love to be around my raza, honestly. And then I connect with the Tejanos, right? Or people that are from here, because I can basically live and communicate with both cultures and peoples. And that is one thing. I think the second thing is that we believe in honesty and transparency. We don't want to tell people just for the sake of getting money, right, of bringing in revenue, we got you. And at the end of the day, we don't, right, knowing that we don't. I honestly love to meet with every person that I bring on, and I will let them know what to expect when they come through my office. They'll be treated with the honesty, transparency, and also we let them know what to expect, right? We don't guarantee the skies, right, and the heavens. We say this is what you should expect based on what I see in front of me, right? Are you comfortable with that? Okay, let's move forward. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. I think what people like that honesty.
Yeah. Absolutely. You said a lot. I mean, it's interesting because this month we're talking about that entrepreneurial spirit, our business owners, people that are advocating, using their businesses, using their expertise, their prestige to advocate for our people, personal injury, immigration attorney, right? Man, our people have always been ingenious with regards to creating opportunities. I'll tell you a story. My grandmother also was a business owner. She had a boutique style studio that sold wedding dresses and quinceañera dresses, and for all the bridesmaids and the damas and all the, all of the things like that. And she was ahead of her time. She kind of saw, the market, kind of felt it out. And when you're in the community, you kind of know where the needs are. Right. And that's when you got to think creatively. Right. Exactly. And so you being in those fields of working for other law firms, you saw the voids, you saw how you could fill it in. But there was also something you alluded to was the unsatisfaction you had with some areas. Right. And I think a lot of people have that.
Yes.
Right now, when I speak to people, they're always like, man, I had this idea, I really want to try this, but I don't know if I can go and take that jump to make my own business or be this creator or go out and, get this project funded. What made you eventually fully take that jump from working with these bigger organizations, working for other people, to you being your own boss?
I started small. My father taught me that, right? You don't want to go and get a huge loan. You want to start small and then build. So that's what I did. And COVID really affected my business the first time around. Remember, now I'm rebuilding now post-COVID. The first time, I believe it is a huge risk. It's a huge risk that if you want to take it because you want to build something and you're saying, I can build this and I know that this is the direction I'm going to take it. And that direction, the goals, the plan is going to change along the way, right? Depending on many factors. But the plunge is necessary. You have to believe in that, what you want to create, and you have to have money in your pocket. And I would not necessarily advocate to go get out loans, right? I would advocate to, if you could, save as much money and then start your business. Yeah. I think what they were telling us, and I went to different resources like this, the Business Development Center that told us, at least have 6 months of income, right? In case revenue or business is not coming in at the beginning, and you have that money to pay your living expenses and so forth. So you have to really find those resources, go to classes, go online and find things, go to the banks and talk to them about getting a line of credit and what that would. And even if you can't get it at that moment, you're at least educating yourself to where you need to be, what you have to have, what to prepare, to the point where when you get there, you have it already.
Yeah. And so again, this is part of the reason I wanted to focus this month on this topic, because, for example, money. Our people have a really, I will say, interesting relationship with money, right? Because, right, as well as I do, right? We've been in the communities, we've been in all these areas, many of our people live in poverty. Many of our people live in borderline poverty. The city we live in is very economically segregated, right? From this area code or this zip code from this part of town, so on and so forth. It's interesting, people got to stretch their dollars these days with just living, right? And then formulating your own business, right? It costs money. Yes. It costs money. And we live in a capitalist society, right? Money talks. I tell Guylan all the time, hey, money talks, bro. And so that talks the loudest. And so in this country, where you have wealthy companies that are ruling, right? And people that are, making decisions with money, it's all about money, right? What are some things, not necessarily just regarding money, but maybe money included, that some people don't think about when they think about formulating their own business?
Well, good point, right? You have to really create a community of sponsors, not financial sponsors, really, of mentors.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to go out there and feel comfortable talking to people, connecting to people, and even asking, would you mind being my mentor? Would you mind sharing documents with me? Would you mind sharing a plan of business with me? You're doing exceptional, or I really admire you. Can you help me out here, right? Also, I would say to keep your close friends, right? Because there's going to be moments where you're asking yourself, what am I doing? I think in everyone's life, we get to that point. But being a business owner is pretty... it's a pretty stressful and tiring endeavor, but at the end, it is very rewarding because you are your own boss, right? You get to make those decisions. I remember working at places and I was not allowed to be in certain meetings or not allowed to go to certain events because I worked for that law firm, right? They had their representatives. And, of course, that just pushed me more, propelled me more to be like, this is not where I'm supposed to be, right? I want to go to where I want to go, right? And, non-compete contracts and things of the sort. So you have to, other than the money, I think, have a support system. If you don't have it, start creating it. Start looking for resources like the Business Development Center, for example. Start thinking about what kind of line of credit you can get or, a loan that you can get that's low interest, right? See about investors, if people are investing. Of course, it depends on the kind of business that you have, right? Investors that would invest in your idea, your vision, your business. There's a good amount of stuff. I mean, it's just, for me, it was learning as I went, right?
Yeah.
Going, and I tried to absorb as much as I could when I would go to different business meetings and development classes, things of that sort.
Well, let's talk about, your firm and why people should obtain your services. Let's talk about personal injury. What is personal injury? That whole section. Well, what is it even?
Oh my gosh. Personal injury encompasses a whole gamut of injuries. What I focus on at Delgado Law Firm, we are experts in auto accidents, 18-wheeler accidents, and commercial vehicle accidents. That's all that we do. Every once in a while, we will take a slip and fall, but we don't do work injuries of anything of that sort. So always let people know that these are the things that we focus on, and we don't do a whole lot of other things under personal injury. So what does that mean? That means that we are able to be experts in that particular niche of law, and that we are able to then work with a network of medical doctors in that niche of law, right, to create that network and keep that network. And we're able to focus more with the clients that deal with these kind of issues as being victims of these accidents.
Okay, so, knock on wood, I was just in a car accident. What the heck am I supposed to do, right? Because, this could happen at any time. We live in a city where the traffic is just becoming more congested. Listen, folks, I hope if you're on the roads right now, you're driving safely. If you're getting ready to get on the roads, I don't care where you're at. Listen, car accidents have the potential to completely change your life in a lot of ways, a lot of bad ways. And we don't want that to happen. So we need those advocates like yourself to go out there and fight for us, because a lot of people are getting screwed.
Yes.
to put it bluntly.
Yes.
And we don't need that, right?
Yes.
We don't need people to have loss of a vehicle. You can't get to work, injuries, loss of money, the wages or whatever that could potentially happen. The vehicle's broken. You got to get it repaired. You don't have the right insurances, which most people don't understand all of these aspects of business, right? Yes. Insurance companies, who's at fault? Who the heck knows? You got a police officer that's taking the police report. You know,
Yes.
this is in depth. So tell me, I was just in a car accident. What the heck am I supposed to do next?
Wow, there's a good amount of stuff to do, Maximo. And of course, the people that are in an accident don't think of all these things right then and there. But, just think about what I'm about to talk about and give just really briefly. The first, of course, immediately is to make a police report, right? And make sure that you get the case number of that police report. I then would recommend people to exchange insurance coverage with the person who caused the accident, right? I want your insurance information. Pull it out for me. Even if I have to get my phone out and take a picture of your insurance card, right? And I'll give you mine if necessary. We'll exchange information. Now, the officer is supposed to take that information, but we have found in police reports that that information is not listed when it should have been, right? So it's really important that the person who was a victim of an accident to be an advocate for themselves. So one, call the police, make the police report. Second is exchange information on insurance coverage, right? Third is take photos of damage and any videos of the accident scene because you may need it. If you end up having to go to trial, you have that evidence, right? And don't just take a picture of the corner of where the accident happened. Take a picture of the entire vehicle. Make sure that the license plate's included, things of that sort, right? So we know that we can identify that that's your vehicle and that was the vehicle that caused the accidents, for example. We also tell people to, if there is witnesses, get their contact information. You may need it later, okay? So also another thing is call the insurance company and make a claim immediately. Don't wait. Even sometimes I would tell people, do it at the scene of the accident.
Yeah.
Especially if you have 3 or 4 vehicles involved in an accident. Guess what? The first person who calls is the person who's going to get coverage. Because sometimes if there's limited coverage, there's not a lot of coverage. Say, for example, it's just an auto accident. It's not an 18-wheeler accident or a company vehicle. And the person who caused the accident only has $30,000 in coverage. Guess what? The first person who calls in to make that report is the one more than likely that's going to get
This is really intricate.
Yes, it's very intricate.
How did it get this way, by the way? That's a whole other subject. Please continue.
And then I always say this, seek medical attention immediately. The day of, the day after, go and get medical attention and tell the doctor the accident, what day, what time. Make sure that you provide that information because when you go to the attorney, this is the information we're going to ask for, either through a HIPAA form directly to the provider and to the SAPD for the report and so forth. And what is the last thing is contact an attorney, contact my office. Because it's so important that you talk to us about the accident. We have to evaluate the case to see if there's even a possibility to cover the medical, to cover for the property damage and so forth. It's super important. Research shows that people that do not hire an attorney are in are more at a bad position than people that hire.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
It's like 3 times more compensation if you hire an attorney. And remember, it's free. You get seen for free by an attorney for PI cases. Why? Because the cases are on contingency. That means that unless I win, you don't have to pay anything. So what do you have to lose?
Yeah, well, that's a key fact to, calling an attorney, because I think some people are afraid to call an attorney, right? For all of the reasons, right? They don't want to get involved. They don't want to call anyone, or maybe they feel like they're at fault. Now, what if potentially, like I just said, I was in a car accident? What do I do? Now, if I was in a car accident and I'm at fault, I mean, can you help me there? I mean, what's going on? What's the process look like there?
We don't represent, we only represent the plaintiffs, the victims of an accident. So if you walk through my doors, that's what we'll say, unfortunately, and we won't be able to help.
But are there attorneys that
Well,
some sort of representation?
Oh, yes. There's defense attorneys. There's also the attorneys for the insurance companies. Okay. That's the reason an attorney is very important in these kind of cases, because you have to have a good negotiator. They have to be able to talk to the adjuster. First person who really handles the case in these kind of auto accidents, 18-wheeler accidents, and commercial vehicles are the adjusters for the insurance companies. So lawyers are really not involved at that point. The lawyer that's involved is for the plaintiff, is for the victim. That speaks directly with the adjusters, whoever's assigned, right? And we then negotiate with them. We try to get as much compensation for the client as possible, of course, based on the injuries, based on lost wages, like you said, pain and suffering, medical expenses, any other loss. So it's very important that that as attorneys, we are huge advocates for our client, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because, honestly, at the end of the day, the more money you get, the more money we get. So don't you think we have a stake in the case?
Sure.
Right? We want you to get as much money as possible. One, so you come out of your case owing no medical, right? You get the medical treatment you need. We want you back to where you were at, as close as possible, hopefully 100%. A lot of our cases are that. They get back because it was minor accidents and very little injury. I recently got a simple fender bender. I got the client $7,000.
Really?
That person would have not come through the door. They were like that, saying, I didn't want to come. I thought I can handle this on myself. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not injured. We got the person $7,000. Imagine if they had done this on their own. They would not, I'm telling you right now, have gotten $7,000.
Well, I think I got into a fender bender the other day then, if you got 7,000.
No, don't be causing accidents now just to cause them.
No, but see, and here's the thing. I mean, people are paying hundreds of dollars on a regular basis to their insurances. So it's like, if you do happen to get, like I said, God forbid, we're not encouraging people to be in car accidents, but if you do, those insurances should owe you something, right? It just seems like it would be an automatic thing. Now, you're telling me it's not that way. Why is that?
Well, I think you were asking earlier, when we were talking before the show is, how do you figure out who's at fault? What happens if maybe there's a hit and run? I think you've asked me in the past, so let's talk about the first one, right? So, let's talk about the hit and run, right? Because I think it's very important to tell your viewers and tell people that are listening please have underinsured and, uninsured motorist. At least have that. If you're not going to have
as a policy.
Else, yes, as a policy. Because, another story, we recently had a person that we had to tell them we couldn't help them because they got hit by a guy hit them, took off running. Apparently, I guess the vehicle was stolen, right? Well, the vehicle didn't have insurance, and then they don't have insurance. Well, we said, send your insurance in. We want to look at your policy. Because normally people don't know. They're like, what am I looking at, right? So they sent it in, and we figured that we didn't have that. So you have a newly married couple with a 10-month child that got into an accident. They will have to cover their own medical. And they're seriously hurt. They said that they were really badly hurt. So then that's the repercussion of not even having uninsured motorist coverage. That's what we would say recommend overall. Like what do they call those PSAs? Please do that. People may not think, and maybe you'll never get in an accident, but just in case.
Well, somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that's been into an accident. I talk to a lot of people, and I drive all around the city. Yeah. There was a motorcycle up 35 I saw that was on fire the other day. And I don't know how, I was like, the thing was like, poof, like it just went, who the heck knows what happened? I see people getting out of their cars that have just been hit that are going after someone, perhaps because they don't have insurance, right? They want to fight because someone hit their car. Yeah. There's a lot of accidents around town all over. Now, you represent people all throughout Texas, I believe?
Yes. For personal injury cases, yes, we represent throughout Texas. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There was another incident, a coworker, a friend, a colleague of mine, her husband, was almost hit by a person who was probably under the influence of something. And the person was driving completely crazy, reckless. The person hit a telephone pole and killed themselves. Oh and so this person could have hit them head on and hurt or killed them legitimately. Yes. And that's a scary thing. Yes. Particularly for anyone. Listen, I don't know that we need to make a PSA ourselves about the dangers of driving while intoxicated or any of these things. But folks, let's be responsible, right? There are Ubers, paying for people to come pick you up, designated drivers. Because the last thing that we want to hear or to know about is someone that was affected by a drunk driver, which is against the law.
Yes, exactly.
As well.
So there's a couple of things already what you're talking about. I mean, there's the fact about a personal injury case, if there had been one, if they had been hit. Then there's a criminal case there too for the person that caused the accidents or had hurt someone. I mean, we have this, and I also do immigration law. So if you had a situation which we had in the past, say the person that was inebriated, drunk, hit someone, which they have, a couple of our clients, then they're undocumented. So not only are we have a PI case with them, we also have a criminal case where the person who caused the accidents, the victim, the immigrant, can get a U visa based on the crime that the person who caused the accident is charged with, right? So there's all these convoluted issues and laws that are intermingled together, and that is why it's important also to find lawyers like myself that do immigration and personal injury, right? I've also practiced criminal law and I know family law. I no longer do those kind of laws, but I practice them and I know the law, and I've gone to court. I've done, trials and so forth. And so I appreciate that. Thanks to that experience, Maximo, I'm able to help my clients a lot more.
Yeah, you're moving around 360. You got a lot of information. How do you stay up to date on all of these different changing policies? I mean, because the motorists, laws got to be changing just like the clock ticks.
Yes. Well, the good thing about lawyers, we do have to go through CLEs, continuing legal education. We go to conferences. We speak amongst our colleagues. If a new issue comes into our office that we've never dealt with, well, we do the research, right? We look into the law, we look into the regulations, we look into statute. That's my job. That's our job, right? To do the right work for our clients.
You mentioned the 18-wheeler accidents as well. How common are these? I mean, I don't know much about statistics on them, but I mean, there's big trucks and I mean, there's accidents everywhere, but 18-wheelers I see gets a lot of attention.
They are common, and they are much more common, of course, out in the outskirts, right? Not so much in the city, but they are common out in the outskirts, of course, in the city as well. I can't give you the numbers off the top of my head right now, but they do happen. Now, we haven't really seen a lot lately because of the dry season. That's why we tell folks also, another PSA, to be super careful when it's raining, because
oh my gosh,
during that time is when we see an increase in these kind of accidents. People not paying attention, don't have the proper, their tires have gone out, they're kind of worn, they're not paying attention. That we see so many people on their cell phones now. Put that down, right? You can do that later. That causes those sorts of accidents. And like you said, it might not even be any fault of your own. It happens, boom, like that.
Well, I've seen, you've seen those, again, we keep talking about PSAs, but you see those signs by the Texas Department of Transportation around the highways, and they'll say you can't afford an accident. And it's true.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars that are potentially at risk here with someone just taking a quick text message, or someone taking their eyes off the road, or you driving a little bit over the speed limit when it's raining. Now, the roads are very slick when it rains for the most part, so I don't know. I mean, I think we need some continuing education for our drivers as well.
Yes. And, basically also just the coverage, right? Because I've heard time and time again, hit and run. It's like, please have your own coverage as well. Don't depend on the person that actually caused the accidents to have it. Or even if they have coverage, Maximo, we find sometimes they have really bad coverage. I mean, I won't name the insurances that they shouldn't get, really. But you should really do your research and the money, because they're like, oh, I'm saving so much money. This is a cheap insurance coverage. Well, at the end of the day, it's cheap because it's not really going to do much for you or your family if you're in an accident. And, the person, we also know, for example, people will know, well, how do you know if a case is going to be good or not? Well, with a police report. Also, what the at-fault driver's vehicle, right? If we know, oh my God, we have liability here because it's an older vehicle, or do we have a newer vehicle, right, that has to have full coverage? So all those telltale signs are what we have to look at in a case, but it takes time. We can't immediately tell you up front. We have to be put onto contract to be able to communicate with the insurance companies to ask them, what is your coverage? Now, by law, they don't have to give it to us, right? But a lot of them do, because they want to negotiate and see what we can do, right?
What's up with that?
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
Up with that?
Well, because you have a negotiator on the other end, right? It's not just you, as the victim. Hey, can you give me your information? They're like, we don't have to give you anything. You know?
And that's the other thing too. I really can't stand, and I think Dr. Cynthia, a lot of our advocates, have advocated for our people in many ways because, you know, our people have a history of being taken advantage of in a lot of different ways. And here's yet another example that can potentially fly under the radar because our people are undereducated, don't have the savviness, we haven't been raised in these communities where we're talking about all these things. The next area I wanted to talk to you about with regards to this is generational wealth, having your own business, you know, trying to, you know, reap in as much money for yourself and for your clients, people that you represent, because all this stuff that you're talking about, again, with our relationship with money, and we should be talking about money. We should be having more shows, more, you know, forums, you know, whatever it may be looking like, Zoom calls where we're talking about money, because, you know, if you don't have a lot of money, you're buying the cheap tires, right? You're buying the cheap, you know, insurance coverage because this is all you can afford. Well, that is probably going to cost you a lot more in the long run. You know, so it doesn't benefit us if we don't have the money, right? In the ways that we need to take care of ourselves. You know, it's sad, right? I think there's a book I read, you know, something like Nickel and Dime or The Working Poor, where, you know, we're like in a constant circle because we just can't get ahead.
And I think the research has shown that poverty shortens the lifespan. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It messes with our biology, you know, our psychology, our emotional state. I mean, I hear cases every single day from new clients and current clients, you know, crying in my office about certain things and how it's changed their lives. And we're there to help them, right? My job, I feel, is to get them to a place that storm, we let them know the storm will pass. But that's why we're here with you, right? You're not alone. That's why you have La Mera Mera in your back, right? I'm going to fight for you to get to where you need to get. And exactly, you're right. I think that's where I come from, right? I come from a working class background. I come from working at a very young age, you know, from helping raise my brothers, working alongside my mother, you know, going to school full time, having the sheer luck of having people in my life at such a young age that encouraged me to go to college. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know about what I'm talking about right now, about coverage, and we didn't have these conversations, exactly what you're saying, around the kitchen table. You know, like, oh, yeah, you should do this, and this is what you should do, buy some property, and, you know, invest in a 401k, and, you know, do some investment stocks, and as you get older, you should do more bonds because it's less risky. Like, huh? And that's important. And so, for example, what you're talking about, we go as far as in our office, this is on the immigration side, that once my clients become citizens, in their packet, I give them not only a very cute passport to cover for their passport so they can travel all over the place now. Of course, as citizens, they can stay out more than 6 months, wherever who they feel like. And then I give them a voter registration card, and I give them a list of where they can go to see the candidates. You know, I'm hoping that they're Democrat. But at the end of the day, here is your right. Take this and go with it, right? And a lot of them are so excited. And I tell them, you know, the anti-immigrant laws that we have, everything that you've suffered, all the money you're having to pay me and having to pay USCIS, please vote people into power that are going to help our community.
Yeah. Right? And you know, a week, we're talking on so many good things. We only have a few minutes left in the show as well. It always goes by so fast. You know, we're going to have you back. That's why we want to have you back. You have so much information. You know, the other aspect about this is, a week from tonight is voter registration day. A week from today, Tuesday, is National Voter Registration Day. Consider going out there and voting, folks. Yes. You may not have an interest in voting, honestly, but voting sure has an interest in you, just like this money does that we're talking about. You may not be that interested in bonds and the stock market and generational wealth. You may not be, but that money is interested in you, and it's every day. Every day, you know, there's another example of how, you know, money makes a difference.
Exactly. You're going back to the voting. Research shows too, Maximo, and I don't remember where I read this, but I can also look for it, is if you look at the neighborhoods that vote in high numbers, look at their streets.
Oh, yeah, they're well taken advantage of.
Exactly. So that in itself should tell our voters, go out and vote, because you're going to get better results out of the people that you're voting for, right?
Yeah.
For money, yeah, definitely. Research, talk to people, ask questions. Don't be embarrassed about it. You know, like, hey, I don't know this. Like, could you please help me like with this information? I think when we do economic development in our communities, you know, the nonprofits here in San Antonio, financial literacy, we should really dig deeper and really put in our young folk, even if they don't have that, generational wealth. What does that mean, right? What can you do to start building it? What should you invest in when you're young? Save your money, cutting lawns or whatever you're doing. Buy yourself a property when you're in your 20s.
Yeah. My son, he's good at math. And I'm thinking, okay, that's from the ancestors, right?
Yes.
But he's just good, naturally gifted at math. I'm like, okay, so you like numbers. Let's talk about money. So one of the things we're going to start doing, we haven't done it yet, but it's in the works, is playing Monopoly. Right. And start thinking, okay, you got this money, I got this money. How are we going to make, all this money stretch? Right. Because it's the little things and how you make the young people interested.
Yes.
Talk to me, give me what you want to give me also on immigration, because you're also an immigration attorney advocating for our people. You've done wonders to turn people's lives around to fight for them. Right. Again, in a system that's really not, made to have their best interests. So tell me some thoughts, on, your immigration work, maybe during this, Heritage Month, or, how that work, affects you as a person,
Okay. So I really appreciate that I'm able to do immigration law. It's a federal law. I can take cases all over the place, and it differs, right, from what state they come from, the experiences, the culture that they live in, so forth. But I mean, what I love about immigration law is that it is like PI law. When I'm able to help injured people and injured victims, is that it gives me a bolt of energy again. Despite the bad things that you hear, despite the sadness and the struggles you hear, when you have that, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we get there. It is like beyond. I'm thankful for what I do. For it's taken me a good while to get here, right? To be able to have my own business, to be my own boss, to call the shots. Again, it's not easy. It is not easy. It's like a 24/7 job every single day of the year. But at the end of the day, where a client tells me, I'm so happy that I came through your doors, and I hear this a lot. I went to another attorney. I went to 2 attorneys, and they took my money. And you told me what to expect, what I shouldn't think I'm going to expect, and it came to be. And that to me is like, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I'm being honest with people. I'm being transparent with people, and they keep coming back if they need something, and they refer people because I've done a good job for them.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely hear about the horror stories, right? We see it in the media. Some of our relatives are affected by this. A good friend of mine, he goes back to the story about when his father was deported. And, I can see how it's affected him. There's light at the end of the tunnel, though, on the other end. Yes. And all the more reason to contact, Ofelia, people that have our people's best interest in mind. I think one of the things that sets you apart is that before you became an attorney, before you were doing this specific work, you were doing community work, right? You were doing work with, you mentioned, our families, your brothers, communities that really need help, at-risk communities, and so, I don't think anybody's questioning your resume.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went to undergrad, and then I got my master's, and I decided I wanted to go to law school. But in between, I've always been involved in community. I worked at Joven, Edgewood, Fuerza Unida. I volunteered with other organizations if I didn't work with them. I worked with Peace Initiative, being a facilitator for domestic violence, teen violence. I always have had my heart in my community of San Antonio. I came back despite me leaving for my school. And I think that's a huge thing that I want to talk about in San Antonio really for the future, right? Is what are we doing in our communities to promote not only educating ourselves here, but going out of state, having a different experience, being exposed to different people, ideas, and so forth. I think it did a lot for me, right? And like you're saying, I came back home, my money stays here. Yeah. My money stays here. So when people hire me, born, raised in San Antonio, your money's going to stay here in our own city to be able to better our city.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great work. It's a pleasure to be a friend of yours, to have you in our Rolodex. We're sending a lot of people Ofelia's way. So if you're watching the show, if you know anyone that needs any advice, whether on the personal injury side, the immigration side, don't hesitate to give her a call. We're going to put her website and her contact information, in the comment section here, because you never know how, this show could come up and, change someone's life. We want to have these conversations about, keeping our money within our communities as well, right? Talking about money, talking about, our entrepreneurial spirit, how we're working together. Nobody gets where they're going alone. I guess some closing thoughts for me is, again, during this Heritage Month, you mentioned your daughter, I have children as well, how we're raising, our kids and projecting this work into the future. I got to give a shout out. I mentioned my grandmother as well, who had her own business. Shout out to my mom, shout out to my partner. They have entrepreneurial spirit. They have this brand, that they're holding, they're chasing their passions. They're doing what they love. And so, folks, if you're watching this, consider it a sign to go out there and chase your dreams, do what you love, do what your heart tells you and calls you to do. You only get really one pass through at this thing. You don't want to waste your time out here, and so, but that also comes from sitting down with people like yourself. I know how hard you work. I know that you're up till all hours of the night doing work. You're here with us right now, doing this work, and it's to advocate for our people, and so, give her a call, talk to Ofelia, give us a call, DM us, let us know how we can help you. I know a lot of people that message me. I had someone reach out to me the other day that said they wanted to, do, what was it, a probate or something like that, or they wanted to do like a will or something like that, and they wanted to contact you, so yes. Let's get folks in touch. Let's continue to network. Let's continue to help each other. Let's talk about money and how we can leverage our money together. But I guess those are just some closing thoughts from me. I'll give you some closing words as well. I just wanted to shout out to all of our families, all of our people that support us here at VodPod. We love y'all. Thanks for continuing to support this dream as well. This is a dream, creating our own media, creating our own memories and moments, and defining our culture, having the opportunity to talk about things that are important to us. And money is one of them.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that, Maximo. I mean, everything you said, I have to echo. I mean, exactly. It's owning our own destinies, having that passion, and with passion comes responsibility, right? Because things that you want and you're going to fight for are not going to come easy, and those storms are going to come, but they're going to pass too, right? So like you were saying, with the media, with the books that our ancestors have left us, because now Roberto is an ancestor, the knowledge, our professors, our activists, we all have something to contribute. And it's been a pleasure of mine to interact, to know, and to have community like you, friends like you, that are wanting to make change, that are actually doing something. We're put on this earth to do something, right? Everybody has something. And so if you don't feel it right now, when you do, go for it.
Keep searching.
Yeah.
Well, listen, great show tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your plant. Shout out to your family as well.
Yes, my Michael, thank you very much for taking care of Isel. Although he took care of her all day working from home, he's still taking care of her. Great father. And my Isel, who is going to be 3 in December.
Ooh, she's getting old.
I know. And she is something else. I love her very much.
She's so cute. And we got to get Michael on the show, because we got to get Michael's DJing skills.
Yes,
maybe his chef skills too. I heard he's a great cook.
That's what he said. He's willing to do it. So just let him know.
Well, thanks so much, folks. If you're watching us, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share. Call La Meta if you've been in a car accident. If you need any assistance on the legal side, give her a shout. Tell her that we sent you. Like Gylan always says, don't let perfect get in the way of possible. We love y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much. Happy Heritage Month.
Thank you.
Peace.
Nice.